Hello, I'm Cindy with Wisconsin Voices for Recovery, and this is Speak Out on Stigma. Today we'll be hearing from Patrick, a person in long-term recovery and counselor from Clark County. Hi, Patrick. How are you today?
Cindy, wonderful, wonderful.
Great. So tell me, how does stigma harm people seeking or in recovery?
Well, I think it happens in a lot of ways, both subtle and not so subtle. First of all, just access, right? Access to care, access to help. At a time when we have unprecedented numbers of people dying, 22 and 23 nationally, 215,000 people died from overdoses in Wisconsin, approximately 3,200. Um, and we have treatment centers closing down. And in my part of the state, you have to drive 3 to 4 hours to find a detox center. Now, the state budget just came out, and there's not, they pretty much axed a lot of the prevention stuff, but kind of added to law enforcement. And nothing against law enforcement. I mean, I respect those and have good friends in the field. And we ask a lot of them. We ask them to be social workers, counselors, therapists, and we ask a lot of them. But prevention takes care of the problem on the front end, and law enforcement takes care of the problem on the back end. So I think access to care, the way people are viewed who are addicts. Imagine being vulnerable and being scared and walking into an ER and being treated with disdain or disgust. Or in treatment centers, folks being not wanting to hug somebody. Um, I can't imagine what that would feel like. So in my office, and by the way, I am the world's oldest trainee. I'm kind of proud of that. So, um, and the one thing that makes up for in my experience in my job is I offer everybody compassion, love, and care and concern because I think so many of our folks have had so little of that. Um, Stereotyping goes along with the stigma. We expect people to be and act a certain way. For example, this was brought up Tuesday at the conference I was at this past week, and it was wonderful. Where they talked about there's this big campaign. It has been for years. Stay alive, don't drive. We'll get you a ride. Don't drive home after you've been drinking. There's no campaigns like that for people who are using drugs. Um, and the other thing, I don't want to get too long-winded here, but I've spent a lot of time um, with what I do, studying and researching the neurobiology of addiction. And this is more, it's very easy to put this to a character flaw or moral failing, and it's just not. Um, so I could go on for this for a little while. I know we had another question you wanted to ask. Did I answer the question fully, you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. If you can tell me a little bit about how can reducing stigma help save lives?
Again, I think we get back to access. Um, we've gotten to a point where we've expected too much of emergency rooms, and the nurses there and the people there are doing the best that they can. They're overworked, they're harried, and we've got facilities. Like I said, no facilities in my area without a 3 to 4 hour drive, and most of the folks I work with don't have or a car, so trying to find these are really problematic. Um, I think folks live in isolation, they live in fear, they live in shame. The stigma keeps them there. And I'm old enough to remember, and it still is, it hasn't changed much, but the stigma back then, 40, 50 years ago, was you had a character flaw or moral failing, and it's much more than that. So hopefully, I would suggest everybody write your legislators because they're the ones that can help us, right? And folks like me and my coworkers, boots on the ground, we need help, um, and we desperately need help. So I have something that happened this year. Young man, I knew his mother 25 years ago. and gave me a call, scared to death. He was going to try and kick heroin on his own because he didn't have insurance. There's no detox centers. And I said, take him to ER. And they kicked him out. They said, no, we don't do this. So he collapsed. She took him back, or they called an ambulance, and he got about a 4 or 6 hour stay. So I sat with him for about 4 days while he was kicking heroin. And I don't know if anybody has been up close with this. I've done this a number of times, both professionally and personally. And I just wanted to say I'm not a hero. I'm in recovery. This is what we do for one another. Somebody needed help. All hands on deck. What do you need from me? Right. So he it was a difficult experience. He passed about 2 months ago. It wasn't necessary. Basically, he was kicking heroin the old timey way, ibuprofen and maybe the occasional Benadryl. And I don't know if anybody really can grasp how much discomfort and pain he was in for 3 and 4 days. And he was 27 years old, just a kid. And his family's never going to be the same. He was a great brother. He was a good young man, and loved by his family, loved by anybody who spent more than 5 minutes with him. And this is typical. We are losing kids every day. Um, I don't think law enforcement, we can't put all this on law enforcement. And I think there's been some changes. I'm very happy to say Clark County, we've had a recovery court for about 2 years, and it's great. Um, so one of the things for stigma is I think we all have to understand there's many pathways to recovery. And I've had to learn this. As a counselor, I've been in recovery a long time, and I've felt like there's one way to do it. I've learned. I've learned. There's a lot of different pathways, and here's the thing: if there's somebody's in treatment and they're not doing well, we need to understand that the changes to the brain has really, really affected them. And if they're not in treatment, there's a good chance they die. Um, so it was good for me. I went to the conference this week, and I always try to go in with an open heart and an open mind. And I heard a lot of views, and I'm still working on being educated, right? Even though I've been around a long time, I I want to be teachable. I want to be coachable. And that's what I get to do when I go to conferences like this. So the recovery community we're doing what we can. I'm active in my local community. We're kind of having to do it the old timey way, the way they did it 70, 80 years ago. Bring somebody into your home, sit with them, care for them, because the resources are just not there. And the scope and the magnitude of this problem is almost beyond imagining. Um, since I've been back to Wisconsin, I'm originally from Wisconsin. It's nice to be back home. And I've lost 7 people that I've worked directly or indirectly with out of my office. And then this young man, too, on top of him. His name was Christian Peterson, and he was a good man. So, yeah, I think we could really talk for a long time, or I certainly could on this. But Cindy, I appreciate what you all do. I appreciate your program, giving those of us who work in the field this platform to talk just for a few minutes about this really, really difficult subject. And we're losing treasure, our kids every day. And it's not just kids, but it's mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters. And the families are forever changed. They're not the same. So I just want to say thank you so much, Cindy. I appreciate this platform.
Yeah, thank you. And so sorry for your losses. Um, and what you were saying about like education and having an open mind, I agree those aspects are really important to reduce stigma, um, to increase knowledge, um, dispel misconceptions. allows more space for there to be more compassion, less barriers, and more options for people.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I tell you what, if an old salty dog like me can have an open mind and listen and embrace new ideas, I think we all can. And it's been great. While this job is challenging, I can't imagine not doing it or doing anything else. And and you're right, education and mostly just keeping an open mind. Um, yeah.
Thank you so much for that. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Um, so when I went to Christian's funeral, the one thing I didn't say was, this is what those of us in recovery do for one another. Let's look out for one another. Let's watch out for one another, love and support one another. Um, because that's all we got. Those of us in recovery supporting one another. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm still alive, is because I had love and compassion and support probably when I wasn't very lovable. And I'm forever grateful for this life I've been given. So those of us in the recovery community, let's help one another, support one another, like we always have. We always have, and the community here is fantastic. In this part of the state, it's wonderful. And again, thank you, Cindy, for giving me this platform. I sure appreciate it.
And thank you so much. And you said at the importance of support.
Yes, and that I should. I could start talking about that. It's key because so many of our folks suffer in isolation and loneliness, um, and love and support. There's a Johan Hari has a TED talk, and he said the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, but it's connection, and it really is. It's about connecting with one another, and heaven forbid you give somebody a hug who's struggling, who's suffering. Um, just something as simple as just giving somebody a hug can be changing for that day, that week, maybe that life. Who knows? So don't be afraid to extend your hand. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Um, and for those of you that are listening that are suffering, don't be afraid to ask for help. There's those of us that will help. We will. Um, because I always tell my folks as they're leaving the office, if I see you at a meeting, I'm going to buy you a free cup of coffee. So let me buy you a free cup of coffee. Uh,
All right. Thank you, Patrick, for sharing your views on stigma. And thank you to our viewers for watching. Speak Out on Stigma is a forum to raise awareness about the harmful impact of stigma on those in and seeking recovery. Recovery is for everyone. Together, we can eliminate stigma. Don't forget to like, comment, and share this video. Thank you and have a great day.